Hey, right now, 6 minutes after the top of the hour, I am Bill Martinez. He is Richard Lyons, the author of DNA of Democracy in the Shadow of the Acropolis. Hey, Mr. Richard, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, Bill. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing terrific. Glad to connect with you to talk about the way things are evolving here. You knew there was going to be a response by Putin after Congress said, hey, that's it. We're done with this. We've got to put more concerted pressure, not only because of Ukraine, but also because of their meddling with Iran.
Yes, that's correct. And so the EU countries are determined to enforce sanctions by seizing Russian ships and their cargoes where they find them. So now Putin is on the east coast of Russia in one of their ports and on one of their ships and saying that Russia can play the same game. Will do so. But the difference is we have a very effective military and a very effective navy. And the EU has a decent navy. And Russia is so, what do you call it? Overextended militarily, financially. The tyranny of Putin itself is overextended. He can't keep his oligarchs in line. When they get out of line, he has them poisoned.
Right.
This is how he's working. So he's really a paper tiger at this point. His rule is hollow.
Right. Everything with him is transactional right now, you said, and it's got to be expedient because that's what power does when it gets desperate, right?
Yes, of course. It lashes out to do a couple of things to keep people in line inside the country and to pretend a strength you don't have outside your boundaries.
Well,
So
he's got a lot
lash out, you take prisoners, you kill some people, the normal acts of tyrants.
Well, the thing to keep an eye on is watch how the mothers of Russia are acting. They're not happy. Their sons have been murdered out there, and they've been put through just ungodly amounts of horror. And mothers of Russia are in terror right now. And so that's when things start to bubble up. And I don't see it softening here.
You bring up a great point, and there was an author, I'm not going to be able to recall his name, who said, you can never overestimate the capacity of Russians to suffer. And if you look back historically, Bill, the suffering that went on in World War I when they were defeated so badly, the loss of tens of millions of lives because of the Bolshevik takeover,
right,
the purges of Stalin, right? And now you have this Ukraine relative to Russia is a small country, really. And militarily, it never had a reputation of being strong. And Russia and its people have spent up to 25,000 soldiers a month.
Exactly.
This grind. And you're right. If there were ever a time for Russian mothers to say, look, I thought we had a revolution in 1990. I thought all this tyranny was over. If there was ever a time for them to stand up and say, enough, Putin, but he has a very strong network that he had since he was a young man with the KGB.
But like you said, though, for Russia to go through what they went through, the generations that were compromised, that were lost along the way, men, the future of Russia, and the pain and suffering that families have endured. And here you are, deja vu one more time. And then now they're so desperate and running out of people. They're losing 25,000 a month. That's a lot of casualties. And so now what they've done is that they protected those young men that were going to college and said, you're going to be deferred. Now they're saying deferment's over. Drop your books, pick up a gun.
And it's not only that, they're hiring mercenaries from North Korea.
Right.
They're that desperate now.
Right.
And they haven't the manpower to put forward. And Russia is in a horrible place. During the height of the Cold War, they weren't losing this amount of personnel in their military. They were so feared in the world. They didn't have to expend their troops. And now under Putin, what's good about being in Russia under Putin?
Right.
It's a police state. It's poor as can be. Now, all they have is their oil to sell. In fact, what they're seizing now, the ship that they seized was grain that they took from occupied Ukraine. That's what they're trying to sell. They're down to that. Crops that they can steal. They're in a really bad spot.
Well, and you point out something that is a heck of an indicator, isn't it? Just how desperate they have become to resort to this level. So much for Russian pride, right?
The oil they sell to China and elsewhere is at a discount.
Yes.
They have to sell.
Right.
And China knows it. Russia has become China's gas tank.
Right. And speaking of China, where are they in the midst of all this? Here we're hearing rumblings of licking their chops over Taiwan again.
I think they believe that we are overextended, that we are so committed to the Middle East right now, it might be their opportunity. And they had always marked 2027 as the proper year to attempt the taking of Taiwan.
Well, and the thing is, the mainstream media and these anti-Trumpers are doing us no favors, doing the world no favors by talking about munitions being depleted and that we're overextended there in dealing with Iran. This just gives China, this emboldens China all the more, does it not?
Absolutely agree with you. And I have never known the Democrat Party to be one. They say they're all for peace, but all they create is war. And that goes back to FDR's, frankly, appeasement of Germany for World War II. It goes back to Truman shackling the military during the Korean War. It goes back to Vietnam being created, expanded, and then it's determined by the Democrat Party we have to lose Vietnam. This is when it comes to our military strength, the Democrats can always be relied on to weaken it.
And it's amazing, as you said, there's historic evidence here time and time again, is that when you put the Democrats in power, national security is compromised, our military is compromised. Look at the big difference between just even 4 years of Biden. We don't have to go back throughout the entire history of the Democratic Party, but just the comparison between 4 years of Biden and now 2 years of Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth.
All over the world, military conflicts blew up under Biden because we showed appeasement. And every time no, we're for peace. No, you're for appeasement. It's very different.
Exactly.
The only way you create peace is through strength. By being so strong, nobody messes with you.
Exactly.
That's how you create peace, not by saying, well, look, you can just take this much and just don't take everything.
Right. We're talking with Richard Lyons. He's the author of The DNA of Democracy in the Shadows of the Acropolis. Richard, where we are right now in terms of considering your series on the DNA of democracy, and we're in the midst of this revolution that's going on in America with the DSA rising. Paul Revere isn't saying the redcoats are coming any longer. He's saying that they're here. They're throughout this country.
You're exactly right. I'd like to give it a little bit of historical context in that.
Yes, please.
From the time of Woodrow Wilson, who famously said, with regard to Russia, he said, the Bolsheviks are doing it wrong. They're creating socialism through evolution. There's a lot of bloodshed. He said, in America, we're going to do it right. We're going to do it through evolution. We'll arrive to the same end by creating it slowly, by evolution. And they have incrementally, from Woodrow Wilson to FDR, to LBJ, to Obama, been quietly creating socialism in our country through the administrative state.
Right.
An unenumerated, unelected branch, and the most powerful branch of our government, frankly. And they've been creating it, and now they're at the point where they're saying, look, we don't want our whiskey with any water anymore. Let's just do it straight up.
Right.
They're saying we don't need to hide the fact that we're socialists anymore. We don't have to call our policies one thing, right? Even though, like the famous one, Biden's Inflation Reduction Act, that was a takeover of the energy sector in America.
Right.
Dressed up as being something that will contain inflation. What it did was create inflation. This is how the Democrats work. They have lied for a century about their policy, and now their policies are front and center. So it's up to America, all the conservatives to vote, but then half the Democratic Party at least ought to be waking up to this, Bill.
Exactly.
Saying, wait a minute, we believe in America.
Right.
We don't hate it. We believe that we're the most prosperous and free nation in history, and we want to defend it. They have to stand up now and vote against what the Democrat Party has become.
They are literally killing the goose that's laid the golden eggs here all these years, right?
Well, they think if you don't earn those golden eggs, Bill, you feel free to take them.
Right.
And that's what's going on. They are attacking wealth creators left, front, and center. This started under FDR, by the way.
Right.
When he started calling them capitalist royalists, the wealth creators, and then seizing more and more of the economy and more of the wealth of the nation to redistribute it to those who haven't earned it. LBJ did that and put it on steroids. And since then, we've been paying all these massive bills. I think the number's up to $25 trillion has been spent on the Great Society programs to end poverty. We now have more people in poverty than ever, right? Obamacare was said to allow health care for everybody. It was supposed to end any person everybody should have access to health care right now. We have the same amount of people not having access to health care as previous to when Obamacare was passed.
Right, exactly. That's the thing that's amazing to me, because when they first brought this up, they talked in terms, if you remember, 30 million people. It's this donut hole of uncovered people, right? 30 million. And as this was rolling out, I kept asking, okay, how are we doing with that 30 million? Is quantitative numbers saying, hey, this is already starting to happen. We're now down to 20 million or whatever. And they just,
exactly.
They did it in such a way and reported in such a way. It was impossible. You could not count. And now here we are all these years later. In fact, I think it was Shannon Breen this morning say, we got 30 million people that do not have insurance.
Same number.
What are we doing here?
Previous to the Great Society, Bill, the percentage of people considered poor in our country was 13%.
Right.
What the number is today? 13%. Exactly the same after $25 trillion has been redistributed through government in order to end poverty. And policies never work. It always costs double what they say. It's really, and we lose more of our rights and more of our wealth all the time.
Well, and to your point here, Richard, the cost to humanity, the brain damage that this has been imposed on people that are supposed to be free, right? Taking away our freedoms. Now you've got generations of Americans that are less than, not because of their doing, but because of the undoing and the selfishness of the administrative state.
The population that has been most injured by Democrat Party policy since the administration of Harry Truman is the African American population.
Right.
The Great Society made incentivized, right? You could get benefits only if the father of the family was not in the house. You could only get allowance to live in the projects if the father was not present in the house. That tells you all you need to know. And they were African Americans once had businesses and houses and property in inner city. Through the blight programs of the Democrat Party, all those properties were seized. Then you had these huge constructions of projects, but the African American population was not allowed to buy into those properties. They could only rent them, and they rented them through handout. And so they've been oppressed and imprisoned in this propertyless existence.
Well, and the thing that's amazing, the attack on Black people, it's just so unbelievable. When you talk about the rollout here and what they did, you had the Black nuclear family where the mother and father were their marriages were divorce rates were very low. I think it was single digit. The government comes in and does this. And then as if that's not enough, they said, hey, look we got to kill your babies. So then Planned Parenthood comes in, anchors themselves in Black neighborhoods. And you've got about 40% of abortions to this day are upon Black people. And then these Black people elect the same people that are killing their people. And you go, what is wrong with this picture?
Well, okay, there's a couple of points to bring up. Previous to the Great Society, Bill, African American families were advancing in the amount of earnings they had. They were equal to any other group in America. After the Great Society, that plunged because the father was out of the house, because there was no longer any leadership in the African American community. Right? They just handed it over to the Democrat Party. There was what was his name? Carmichael. During LBJ's presidency, is it Stokely Carmichael? Stokely Carmichael said, this is insane. What are Black people doing voting for the Democrats? It's like the Jewish people voting for the Nazi Party.
Exactly.
And he was exactly right. And they maintained being the strongest bloc in the Democrat Party. And in Massachusetts 2 days ago, the governor of Massachusetts signed into law that you can abort a baby up to the day of birth.
Exactly.
And who do you think that affects more than anybody else?
Oh, of course.
The African American population. So the Democrat Party has been a bad party and a bad influence in America for a long time.
Well, they are literally killing the American dream, Richard. I don't know how else to size it up because their actions continually have been deleterious. I don't know that I can look back even the number of decades and say, God, I'm sure glad the Democrats were here.
Well, and they were the party of slavery in the Civil War.
Exactly.
Defended it tooth and nail.
They supported the KKK, and
They
then
supported Jim Crow.
right. And then now you got all the stuff going on with the Southern Poverty Law Center.
Yes.
And it's like they just can't help themselves, Richard.
No, and it's with the help of your program, Democrats are going to wake up that this really is their party. It's hard to admit, look in a mirror, say,
Right.
gosh, I was wrong. But that really, and that's the point of my book series of books. Who are we? You have to ask yourself the question. Who's the Democrat Party?
Well, and that's the question they've been asking. And this is why they're out in the desert. They're lost right now. And this is why they've been taken over by a fringe group that occupies in the spectrum. You've got the Democratic Party that is so left, and there are 96% left, and there's only about 4% of room to get in. And the DSA is covered in. They've come in and they planted their flag on that 4%. And it's not even the tail shaking the dog. It's the hair on the tail shaking the dog right now.
Yes, but that's always the way it starts, by a small amount of very ferocious people.
Right.
Taking over a political party. It's how Hitler started in Germany.
Yeah.
It's how Mussolini started in Italy.
Exactly.
It's how the Bolsheviks began in Russia.
Right. It's how Minnesota was taken over by the Somalis, right?
How about that?
Same thing. 82,000 people is all it took. He's the author of The DNA of Democracy, Shadows of the Acropolis, Richard Lyons. Thank you, Richard. Take care, my friend.
Oh, thank you, Bill, very much.